My name is James Harrington. I'm 56 years old, a father, a business owner, and until recently, I thought I was a husband to a loyal wife. For 28 years, I built a life with a woman I believed would grow old with me. I was wrong. What started as a normal Thursday afternoon ended with a shattered marriage, for Zoom calls, and a betrayal so deep it nearly broke me. But I didn't fall apart. I planned. And what happened next? Let's just say, when a man like me gets pushed too far, he doesn't cry. He calculates. I wasn't supposed to be home that day. At least, that's what Laura thought. The clock on the wall read 3:32 p.m. when I heard the garage door rumble open. I didn't move. I just sat there at the kitchen table, 10 feet from the door, sipping my bourbon. My heart wasn't racing. No anger, no panic. Just cold, focused silence. Today wasn't about emotions. It was about execution. Then, the door swung open. "James," she blinked, surprised. "Why are you home?" That was her first mistake. Not "Hi," not "How was your day?" Just a question that oozed with panic disguised as confusion. I tilted my glass slightly and stared at her from across the room. "I live here," I replied calmly. Behind her, he appeared. Taller, younger, dressed like he was trying too hard, button-up shirt rolled to the elbows, smug smile barely held together. "Brandon." His posture changed the moment he saw me. I could tell from the slight twitch in his eye. This wasn't going to script. He expected an empty house, maybe some whispered laughter and tangled sheets before dinner. Not me. Laura stood frozen for a beat, then stepped further into the kitchen like she still had control over the moment. She looked good, I won't lie. She always did. Auburn hair down, white blouse with one extra button undone, black skirt hugging her figure, heels clicking confidently on the hardwood floor. She knew how to dress for attention, and today, it wasn't mine she was after. I studied her for a second. I didn't see the woman I married 28 years ago. I saw the woman who thought I'd never figure it out. And maybe she was right, at first. But that ship had sailed. Today wasn't about marriage. It was about consequences. Brandon cleared his throat and extended a hand. "Hi. I know who you are." I cut him off without looking his way. "And I know what you are." He flinched, just slightly. "Good." Laura spoke again, a little too quickly. We came home early. To talk. To have a conversation. I echoed. "Funny. I didn't realize I married a corporation." I stood up slowly and walked around the island, still holding my drink. My voice stayed calm, but there was no mistaking the weight in it. "I don't recall inviting him into our home. Hell, I don't remember asking for a meeting. But since you're both here, let's have that talk." She nodded, trying to maintain composure, like she could still fix this. I motioned to the living room. "Why don't we all get comfortable? I'll make drinks. One last round, as a family." Laura hesitated. Brandon looked uneasy, glancing around like he expected a hidden camera, or worse. I turned my back to them, walked to the wet bar in the family room, and poured her a glass of her favorite Merlot. For Brandon, a tulip glass of Pabst Blue Ribbon, America's cheapest insult disguised as beer. As I returned, I noticed them whispering urgently in the hallway. She was probably reminding him of the plan. Go in, act remorseful, pin it on a moment of weakness. They had a script. I was supposed to be the broken husband, the man too afraid to fight back. But I wasn't broken. I was ready. I handed Laura her wine and Brandon his beer. He looked at the glass, confused, like I had just handed him a live grenade. "Cheers," I said with a smile. He took a sip, winced, and tried to comment on its complex flavor. I cut him off. "It's Pabst Blue Ribbon. I keep it around for guests like you." Laura's eyes narrowed. "James, you're being rude." I turned to her. "Oh, is this not the calm conversation you wanted? I assumed we'd be discussing betrayal over drinks." "My mistake." They fell silent. This was my house, my rules. And now, my moment. I took a deep breath, sat down in my chair across from them, and looked into Laura's eyes. They weren't the eyes of a woman in love. They were the eyes of someone who got caught, who never thought she would. She still didn't realize just how far ahead I was. And I hadn't even pressed record yet. I leaned back in my chair, watching them squirm. Laura sipped her wine too quickly, like she needed liquid courage. Brandon, still gripping the Pabst like it might bite him, was visibly trying to figure out how the hell this had gone so wrong, so fast. I took a slow sip of bourbon and smiled. "So, what exactly did you want to talk about?" Laura opened her mouth, but before she could answer, Brandon spoke up. Mr. Harrington. I held up a hand. Let's get one thing straight, Brandon. You don't get to call me James. You don't even get to think you're on a first-name basis with me. It's Mr. Harrington. Or sir. Take your pick. His jaw tightened. I could see the anger bubbling under the surface, but he swallowed it. Good boy. Laura shot him a warning glance, then turned to me. James, please. We didn't come here to fight. I thought we needed to have an honest conversation. Honesty, I said, rolling the word around like a fine cigar. Now there's a novelty coming from you. She blinked. This doesn't have to be hostile. Oh, I'm not hostile, I interrupted. I'm very calm. But don't confuse calm for weakness. That's another mistake you've been making lately. She looked away, her eyes drifting to the fireplace. It used to be her favorite spot to curl up with a book. Now it was just another room in a house she no longer belonged to. I made a mistake, she said quietly. I won't deny that. I raised my glass again. One mistake? Is that what we're calling it now? She hesitated. Brandon leaned forward, trying to help her. It was a brief relationship. We didn't mean for it to happen, and we certainly didn't mean to hurt you. I laughed. Loudly. Bitterly. Didn't mean to hurt me? You walked into my house. Our house. With this guy. And you thought what? That I'd thank you for your honesty? That I'd invite him to Sunday dinner? Brandon's cheeks flushed, but Laura cut in. I thought we could talk it out like adults. You want adult conversation? Fine. I placed my glass down and looked her dead in the eye. Why him? Out of all the men in the world, why this smug little amateur lawyer with a fake smile and an ego bigger than his paycheck? She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. You know what? I continued, voice rising just a little. Don't answer that. Because I already know. I know everything, Laura. The texts. The hotel receipts. The lunchtime quickies in his office while his secretary covered for him. The fake work trips. All of it. Brandon shifted uncomfortably, finally realizing just how deep this hole was. I wasn't stupid, Laura. I was in love. There's a difference, I said. I wanted to believe in you. I wanted to believe that after 28 years, we were still on the same team. But you? You were playing a whole different game. Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't flinch. I'd already cried. I'd done that part, alone, in the dark, long before this day came. I'm sorry, she whispered. I didn't know how to tell you. I never planned for it to go this far. No, I said coldly. You just planned to get away with it. Brandon cleared his throat again, attempting to salvage something. Look, Mr. Harrington, James, this doesn't have to end badly. Laura loves you. She said as much. You're still talking, I snapped. You don't get to talk right now. You get to sit there, drink your discount beer, and pray I don't decide to throw you out that door head first. His lips clamped shut. I stood, walking slowly toward the fireplace, then turned around and looked at them both. You thought this was going to be some dramatic reveal. Like a bad soap opera. You come clean, we all cry, and somehow we find closure, right? Neither of them responded. Well, I said, voice now steady as stone, you guessed one thing right. There will be a dramatic ending, but it won't be the one you rehearsed. And with that, I walked toward the den. I had one more thing to set in motion before the real show began. I walked back into the room, bourbon in hand, and took my seat across from them. Laura was nervously picking at the hem of her skirt, and Brandon, well, the confidence he had when he walked through my door had vanished completely. He looked like a man halfway through realizing he was in way over his head. I leaned forward slightly, resting my glass on the table between us. All right, I said. Let's get to the part where you explain yourselves. Laura opened her mouth, then paused, glancing at Brandon. I watched her carefully. She was still trying to control the narrative, still thinking this could be salvaged. That I might cry, beg, forgive. She had no idea. I didn't mean for it to happen, she started. Her voice trembled, a little too perfectly. I was lonely. You've been distant these past few months, James. And Brandon was he was there. He listened. I let the silence stretch, watching her squirm. That's your excuse? I finally said. You were lonely? After everything we built together? 28 years, Laura. 28 damn years. And that's all it takes for you to throw it away. Brandon tried to step in. Mr. Harrington, if I may. I shot him a look that could have frozen fire. Don't. He clamped his mouth shut. I've been nothing but good to you, I said, turning back to Laura. I gave you everything. Supported you through school, helped you build a career. I created the life you live in. And this is how you pay me back. Tears welled in her eyes. She tried to reach for my hand across the coffee table, but I pulled back. I didn't plan it, she whispered. It was just supposed to be a distraction. Something short. Harmless. Harmless. I echoed, laughing coldly. You brought him into my house. You didn't even try to hide it anymore. She covered her face with her hands. I made a mistake. I stood up, walking slowly to the fireplace, letting the weight of her words hang in the air. No, Laura. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice. Again and again and again. I turned back to them, eyes locked on hers. You want to convince me this was just a one-time fling? You expect me to believe this was your first and only betrayal? She shook her head. It is. I swear. There's never been anyone else. Sure, I said. And pigs fly first class. She looked hurt, but I didn't care anymore. The damage was done. Whatever feelings I once had were now buried under layers of disgust and clarity. You think I haven't been paying attention? I asked. You think I didn't notice how cold you became? The sudden late meetings? The new passwords on your phone? The way you started looking at me like I was just furniture? Brandon cleared his throat again. I said don't. I snapped without even looking at him. You speak when I give you permission. And I haven't. He sank further into the couch. I loved you, I said to Laura, softer now. Even when it got hard, even when we were drifting, I was still fighting for us. But you? You were auditioning replacements. She tried to defend herself. I wasn't trying to hurt you. But you did, I said, cutting her off. You hurt me. You humiliated me. And worst of all, you underestimated me. I crossed the room again and opened a drawer in the credenza, pulling out a thick manila envelope. I tossed it onto the coffee table with a loud thud. Both of them jumped. What's that? She asked, eyes flicking from me to the envelope. I smiled. That's the next chapter. She stared at it like it was ticking. You wanted a conversation, I said, turning away. Well, I'm just getting started. I took another sip of bourbon, savoring the silence that followed. They still thought they had some control left. They didn't. The truth had unfolded. But justice? That was what came next. I watched them both stare at the envelope like it might explode. Laura hesitated, then reached out with trembling fingers. Brandon leaned slightly forward, trying to catch a glimpse over her shoulder. She opened the flap and pulled out the first sheet. Her eyes scanned the page. Then they widened. This is a divorce petition, she whispered. Filed yesterday morning. I replied, sinking back into my chair. Infidelity cited as the primary cause. Supported by multiple exhibits. Detailed ones. Brandon stiffened, and I noticed the blood drain from his face. Laura just sat there frozen, blinking like she couldn't quite comprehend what she was holding. You hired a lawyer? She asked, voice barely above a breath. Of course I did, I said flatly. You think I was going to sit here, play the fool, while you two turned my life into a soap opera? No, Laura. I hired the best. I grabbed the remote and pointed it at the TV on the wall. The screen flickered to life. A Zoom call was already waiting. Two faces appeared, one familiar, one not. Laura, meet Lou Beard, I said. My divorce attorney. Good afternoon, Mrs. Harrington. Lou greeted her, voice calm but firm. We've already filed in family court. You'll need to secure legal counsel of your own within 7 days. If not, we'll proceed without your representation. Laura turned ghost white. We've included a complete report from the private investigator, Lou continued. Photos, videos, timestamps. Every dinner, every hotel, every rendezvous with Mr. Brandon Foster. Quite comprehensive. Brandon shifted in his seat. His mouth opened slightly, as if to object, but thought better of it. We're also invoking the full terms of the prenuptial agreement, Lou added, including the infidelity clause. Since the contract has been reviewed and re-signed every 2 years, with your notarized signature, it is legally airtight. Laura stared at the screen. You're serious? I leaned forward. Oh, I've never been more serious. Lou continued, professional and unrelenting. We've initiated the process of asset division. The house will remain in Mr. Harrington's name. Joint accounts are already frozen. Credit cards canceled. Her company car is scheduled to be returned by Friday. Phone service ends tomorrow. Laura's jaw dropped. You already did all this. I nodded. Last night, while you were otherwise occupied. Brandon rubbed the back of his neck, as if the room had suddenly become much warmer. And that's not all, I said, lifting another envelope from the drawer. Inside this one, you'll find documentation signed last night by the board of directors at Herring Brokerage. Laura's hands shook as she opened it. You've been relieved of all corporate responsibilities, I told her. Effective immediately. Your access to the building has been revoked, and all your company logins have been disabled. She looked like I had slapped her across the face. I wasn't finished. We'll be pursuing an 80-20 split in my favor, Lou said from the screen. Given the severity of the breach and the extensive documentation, you'll have 30 days to vacate the property and remove your belongings. Mr. Harrington will retain the home, free and clear. Is this really necessary? She whispered. You tell me, I replied coldly. Brandon sat rigid, no longer pretending to be anything more than dead weight in the room. His eyes were flicking between the TV screen and the exit like he was calculating the odds of escaping humiliation. You've lost everything, Laura, I said, standing. Your husband, your reputation, your job, your home. All for what exactly? A fling with a man who couldn't even speak without my permission. She didn't answer. She couldn't. You see, Laura, you didn't just cheat on me, I continued. You waged war against the one person who knew you better than anyone. And now you're learning something you clearly forgot over the years. I leaned in, voice low and steady. I never lose. Then, I clicked the remote again. The screen went black. Laura slowly set the envelope down, her face pale, stunned. Brandon remained silent, like a child who just witnessed his first real consequence. I turned my back to them and walked into the hallway. My hand brushed the cool glass of my bourbon, still half full. This wasn't over. Not even close. I didn't go far. Just into the hallway, enough to give them the illusion of space. Let them absorb the hit. Let Laura feel what it was like to sit in silence, just like I had, countless nights, wondering where she was, who she was with, wondering what lies she'd tell to keep the illusion alive. But this wasn't about illusions anymore. This was reality, and it was about to get even more real. I stepped back into the living room. Laura hadn't moved. Her hands were clasped in her lap, white-knuckled. Brandon was stiff, staring at the floor like it might open up and swallow him. I picked up the remote again. One more thing, I said, pressing the button. The screen came back to life. Another Zoom window. Another face. Jake, I said casually. Can you hear me? Jake Armstrong, Executive Vice President of Legal Affairs at Kellerman & Sons, and Brandon's boss. Loud and clear, Jake said. Got 5 minutes before my next call. Let's make it count. Brandon's head snapped up. Jake, wait, I can explain. You'll have time to explain to HR. Jake interrupted, voice sharp and businesslike. We've reviewed everything. The photos, the security footage, the emails sent from your company laptop to Mrs. Harrington. Laura flinched. You violated multiple clauses of your employment contract, Jake continued. Fraternizing with a client's spouse, using company time and resources to facilitate the affair. It's a liability nightmare. Jake, please, Brandon started, but Jake steamrolled him. Your personal belongings are being packed up and will be left in the lobby. You have 24 hours to collect them before they're discarded. There will be no recommendation letter. No severance. I crossed my arms, watching Brandon's entire career unravel in real time. I couldn't help but smile. Jake wasn't done. And Laura. She looked up slowly, her eyes wide with dread. I hate to do this, Jake said, his tone slightly softer but no less firm. But we've also reviewed your role in this. As a senior member of our HR department, your conduct is a direct violation of multiple ethics policies. I didn't involve the company, she stammered. I swear, this was personal. You brought it into our offices, Jake snapped. And now, thanks to this mess, we've got exposure, potential lawsuits, and a media nightmare. Your position in Hartford has been eliminated. Her jaw dropped. We're offering you a similar position at our Albany branch, Jake went on. Same salary. No leadership title. You have 1 week to accept and 30 days to relocate. The screen flicked off without further ceremony. The silence was deafening. Laura sat in stunned disbelief. Her job, her title, gone in less than 5 minutes. Brandon looked like he might throw up. I took another sip of bourbon. You know what the best part is? I asked, breaking the silence. You did this to yourselves. All of it. I just accelerated the timeline. Brandon stood up suddenly, his hands shaking. You're ruining our lives. I stood up too, slowly, calmly, deliberately. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. No, Brandon, I said coldly. You ruined your life the moment you stepped into mine. You just didn't realize whose house you were walking into. He didn't respond. He couldn't. He looked like a child who'd just been caught stealing from a store and was now facing jail time instead of a slap on the wrist. Laura buried her face in her hands. I walked over to the table and retrieved the second manila folder, the one they hadn't seen yet, and placed it gently on the coffee table. There's more, I said. Of course there is. Her head shot up. Oh, we're far from done, I added. You thought losing your job was bad? Just wait. You're not the only one Brandon's been seeing, are you? Her face went pale. I turned to him. How do you think your wife's going to feel when she hears about all this? He blinked. What? I gave him a slow, satisfied smile. Oh, didn't I mention that? I said, picking up the remote again. We have another call scheduled. He took a step back. Laura grabbed his arm instinctively, but it was too late. Time to meet the Real Mrs. Foster. Brandon staggered backward like I'd punched him in the gut. My wife, he stammered, his voice cracking. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I simply pointed the remote at the screen and hit play. The TV flickered back to life. A woman's face filled the frame, a beautiful, composed blonde in her early 40s. Her name appeared in the corner of the screen, Dr. Cynthia Foster. Brandon froze. Laura's hand dropped from his arm like it had been burned. Michael, Cynthia said. Her voice was icy, controlled, too calm. The kind of calm you only get after rage has burned everything else away. You don't need to say anything. I'm not here for apologies. See when, Cynthia, wait, please, Brandon started. No, she cut him off sharply. You don't speak. You've done enough of that, with your mouth, and apparently, with every other part of you. Laura gasped. Cynthia continued, eyes locked on the camera. Thanks to a very helpful gentleman named James Harrington. Hello? James, I finally have the full picture. I've spent the last week verifying everything. You didn't just cheat on me, Michael. You made a hobby of it. She held up a folder of her own, just like I had. Here's a list. Want to hear some names? Brandon looked like he was about to be sick. Karen from accounting. Rachel in compliance. Megan. Oh, Megan, Cynthia said, shaking her head. And now Laura, the married HR director from a client's firm. How poetic. Laura looked horrified. Her eyes darted between Brandon and the screen, trying to figure out where she stood in this train wreck. I gave up everything for you, Cynthia went on. I moved states. I left my position at Ascension St. John's. I uprooted our daughters' lives because you swore we were starting fresh. She leaned in closer to the camera. Her face filled the entire screen now. You've humiliated me. You've disrespected our daughters. And now, you're out. I filed for divorce. You'll be served in a few days. Brandon sank back onto the couch, mute. I'll be staying in Michigan, she added. The girls and I will be fine without you. In fact, better. I've already reinstated my position at the hospital. You're not welcome in our home. Don't call. Don't write. Laura covered her mouth. Oh my God. Cynthia glanced briefly at Laura. Don't worry, Laura. You're not the first. You won't be the last. But if you're expecting him to be loyal to you. She laughed once, bitterly. You might want to get in line. She turned her attention back to Brandon. You disgust me. Then, without another word, she reached forward and disconnected the call. The screen went black. The silence that followed was suffocating. I stood there, watching the two of them crumble. Brandon, pale and shaking, face buried in his hands. Laura, speechless for the first time since she walked in that door, her mascara running, chest heaving with uneven breaths. I let the moment breathe. Let them feel it. I tried to warn you, I said finally, walking back to my chair and sitting down with my bourbon. You thought I was bluffing. Thought you'd talk your way out of this. That I'd fold under the pressure. I shook my head. You don't understand the kind of man you betrayed, Laura. I don't react, I plan. And you, I pointed to Brandon, picked the worst possible mark. He didn't respond. Couldn't. I turned to Laura again. Her eyes locked with mine, red and glassy. Is this still just a fling to you? I asked, voice low. Still harmless? Still fun? She opened her mouth, then closed it. Nothing left to say? I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. You see, the thing about betrayal is it never stops at just one life. It spreads, infects everything it touches. Your marriage? Gone. His career? Over. And now, even his wife is leaving. She looked away, as if the floor might offer refuge. But there was none. And we're still not done, I said quietly. You may want to brace yourself, because the next call, that one would hit even closer to home. The silence was almost peaceful now, if not for the sheer tension radiating from the two people sinking deeper into my living room sofa. Laura looked like she'd aged 10 years in the last 10 minutes. Brandon was halfway to a full collapse, slouched forward, face in his hands, defeated. And I wasn't done yet. I reached for the remote again. Slowly, deliberately. Laura glanced up, eyes wide with a new kind of fear. James, what are you doing? I didn't answer her. I didn't need to. The screen lit up for the fourth time, and when the next face appeared, Laura actually gasped. It was our daughter, Kelly. She sat in a softly lit room, eyes serious but warm, with that same calm confidence I'd always admired in her. Her hair was pulled back, her expression composed, until she saw her mother. Hi, Mom, she said. Laura's voice cracked. Kelly? Why are you? Kelly cut her off. Dad told me everything. Actually, I overheard you weeks ago. That phone call with your little boyfriend. The one where you talked about how dumb Dad is. How easy this would be. How you'd handle him. Laura's face turned pale. You were laughing, Kelly continued, her voice growing sharper. I remember you laughing about how he wouldn't fight back. That he'd probably thank you for being honest. She shook her head, disappointed. You didn't just betray Dad. You betrayed me. Kelly, please, Laura tried, her voice quivering. You don't understand, Oh, I understand perfectly, Kelly said, sitting straighter. I understand that while I was planning a new chapter in my life, you were busy destroying everything we were supposed to stand for as a family. Laura opened her mouth, but Kelly wasn't finished. I'm pregnant, Mom. The room fell silent again. Laura blinked rapidly. What? I was going to tell you next week. In person, Kelly said. But now, after this? No, you don't get to be part of it. You don't get to ruin something else just because you can't control yourself. Laura looked like she'd been struck. You're not serious. I'm very serious, Kelly said, her voice flat. You think I want someone like you around my child? Someone who could look their own husband in the face for months while sneaking around with a man she brought into our home. Tears streamed down Laura's face, but Kelly didn't let up. Everything you did, she said, was selfish, reckless, and disgusting. And I refuse to let my child grow up thinking that's how love works. Brandon looked up, stunned by the rawness of it all. Laura tried again. Sweetheart, I miss you. I've been so lonely since you moved. You don't know what that's like. Kelly stared at her, disbelief written all over her face. Are you blaming me now? For your affair? Laura looked horrified. No, that's not what I meant. Good, Kelly said. Because I wasn't the one planning weekend trips with a man whose wife didn't even know he was gone. You were. Laura swallowed hard. Can't we just talk about this? I can come to Boston. We can sit down. No, Kelly said firmly. You won't be coming. I've already made plans for the baby's celebration, with people who actually bring joy and love into my life, not betrayal and chaos. Laura's voice turned desperate. I'm still your mother, and I'm still your daughter, Kelly replied. But I'm also someone's mother now, and that means protecting them from toxicity, no matter where it comes from. Tears filled Laura's eyes. Please, just give me a chance. You had decades of chances, Kelly said softly. You chose this. The screen went black. I stood up slowly. Laura was sobbing now, quietly, her shoulders trembling. Brandon sat in silence, likely praying the floor would open and swallow him whole. I walked to the coffee table and gently set my glass down. Then I pulled back the hem of my shirt just slightly, just enough to show the pistol tucked into the back of my waistband. Brandon looked up. His eyes widened. Relax, I said calmly. No one's getting shot today. That's not my style. But just so we're clear, you'll be out of my state in 3 days. Not 4. Not 5. 3. Or I make one phone call, and your life goes from bad to unsurvivable. He nodded. Wordlessly. I turned to Laura, who couldn't even look at me now. I'm going out for dinner, I said evenly. When I get back, I want you gone. Take what you need. The rest? It'll be boxed and left on the lawn. Then I walked toward the door, paused, and glanced back over my shoulder. Enjoy the weekend, I said. I hear New York's beautiful this time of year. And with that, I stepped outside. The cold night air hit me like a baptism, but it wasn't me who needed saving. The door clicked shut behind me, and for a brief second, I just stood there, eyes closed, breathing in the crisp evening air like it was the first clean breath I'd taken in years. Inside, I'd left behind a broken woman and a spineless fraud. Behind that door was the wreckage of a marriage built on decades of love, dismantled in weeks by ego and deceit. But out here was freedom. I climbed into my truck, drove a few blocks, parked under a street lamp, and waited. Not because I was second-guessing anything, but because I knew how this would go. I gave her 2 hours. She'd either leave or give me one last pathetic attempt to beg. Part of me wondered if she'd even be able to stand after everything that had hit her tonight. I gave it exactly 1 hour and 59 minutes. When I returned, the house was quiet. The front porch light was still on. I stepped inside. Empty. No luggage in the hallway. No footsteps echoing in the kitchen. Just the silence I'd come to expect from a home that had slowly turned into a museum of lies. A note sat on the kitchen island. Her handwriting. A few lines about being sorry. About needing time. About hoping we could talk. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. I crumpled it into a tight ball and tossed it in the trash. Upstairs, her closet had been half cleared out. A few drawers left ajar. She'd taken the essentials, likely planning to send someone for the rest. Fine by me. She had 30 days, and then the locks would change. I walked down to the den and poured myself a final bourbon for the night. Not to celebrate. This wasn't a victory. It was a reckoning. But I wasn't done just yet. I picked up my phone and dialed one final number. "Hey," I said when the voice answered. "It's done. She's out. He's done. Everything's in motion." "Understood," the voice replied. "Need me to make the next call?" "Not yet," I said. "There's one more loose end." I hung up and walked back to the living room. Brandon's briefcase sat forgotten by the couch. He must have left it in the chaos. I considered tossing it out the door, but something told me to look. Inside were some files, a worn leather notebook, and, interestingly, a flash drive. I pocketed it, just in case. 3 days later, I got confirmation that Brandon had left the state. Not voluntarily, of course. He had no job, no wife, no apartment. His lease was terminated after some convenient calls were made. A few friendly reminders from local contacts encouraged him to seek opportunity elsewhere, preferably far away. Laura, on the other hand, had moved in with her sister across town. She tried calling me once, left a voicemail, said she was doing the work, seeing a therapist, and wanted to talk. I didn't respond. I forwarded the message straight to my attorney. A week later, the court confirmed the expedited divorce hearing. Thanks to the prenup, the evidence, and her signature on every update for 28 years, it would all move fast. No alimony, no assets, no debate. Clean, surgical, but still not finished. You see, there was one last Zoom call that night. One final blow I hadn't yet delivered. And I wasn't sure, even now, if I ever would. It was recorded, ready, sitting in a folder marked break glass in case of delusion. It featured several of Laura's co-workers, some of whom had their own little stories to tell. A trail of inappropriate emails, office gossip, connections to Brandon long before she claimed it just happened. If she ever tried to twist the story, go public, claim victimhood, that video would surface. For now, I kept it tucked away. Some people need to be reminded. Others need to be haunted. A few nights later, I stood at the edge of my property, watching the sun dip behind the trees. The wind carried the scent of pine and cold stone. Peace. It's funny how betrayal burns everything down, but in the ashes, you can finally see clearly. Laura had tried to break me, but instead, she broke the version of me that was too forgiving, too patient, too blind. And the man left standing? He doesn't forget. He doesn't beg. And he never loses. Maybe that's the real lesson in all of this. Not just about betrayal, or revenge, or who ended up with what, but about clarity. About the value of knowing your worth, even when others try to diminish it. About having the courage to walk away from something that looks perfect on the outside, but has been rotting for years behind closed doors. If you've lived long enough, like I have, you start to realize that loyalty, trust, and quiet strength are rare. People will take advantage of your kindness if you let them. They'll confuse your silence for weakness, your patience for permission. Don't let them. We get one life, one heart, and at a certain point, you have to protect both like they're sacred, because they are. So if you find yourself in the dark, suspecting, doubting, hurting, don't ignore it. Don't sweep it under the rug for the sake of peace. Face it head on. Ask the hard questions. Look for the answers, even if they scare you. Because the truth may hurt, yes. But living in a lie, that destroys you, piece by piece. And no one deserves that.